Captain Veros Kell stood on the bridge of the Imperial patrol cruiser Vigilance and watched the stars through the main viewport. He had served the Galactic Empire for 42 years. He had seen battles and rebellions. He had watched planets burn and treaties signed. In 3 more months, he would retire to a quiet world and never wear a uniform again. He was tired. He was old. He wanted peace. The outer veil was not a place for peace. This region of space sat at the very edge of Imperial territory. Pirates hid in the asteroid fields. Smugglers ran illegal goods through the nebula clouds. Rebel groups plotted in hidden stations. The Vigilance was here to remind everyone that the Empire still watched, still controlled, still punished those who broke its laws. "Routine sweep complete, Captain," said Lieutenant Mira Tash, his sensor officer. She was young and eager, fresh from the academy. No unusual activity detected. Veros nodded slowly. Routine. He liked routine. Routine meant no one died today. Then Mira's console made a sound he had never heard before, a strange tone, almost musical. She frowned and leaned closer to her screens. "Captain, I have an anomaly." "What kind of anomaly?" "A ship, sir. It just appeared on sensors." Her voice carried confusion. But there was no FTL transition burst, no energy spike, nothing. It simply appeared. Varus felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Ships did not simply appear. When a vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel, it created a specific energy signature. Every species, every technology, produced some kind of signal. This was basic physics. This was how the universe worked. "Show me," he said. The main view screen shifted to display the sensor data. There, approximately 50,000 kilometers from the Vigilance, sat a ship. Veros studied its shape and felt his confusion grow. The vessel was roughly the size of an Imperial frigate, but its design matched nothing he had ever seen. The hull curved in organic sweeps on one side, then shifted to hard geometric angles on the other. The material of its skin seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making the ship look like a shadow given form. "Run identification protocols," Varos ordered. "Already running, sir." Mira's fingers danced across her console. The computer is comparing the design against all known configurations. Imperial, Consortium, Kreth Dominion, Hollow Syndicate, Free Trader Alliance. She paused. Her face went pale. "Captain, the computer has returned a result I have never seen before." "What result?" She turned to look at him. "Classification unknown. No match found." Silence fell across the bridge. Every officer stopped what they were doing and turned to stare at the view screen. In the entire history of the Galactic Empire, spanning thousands of years and millions of cataloged vessels, the Imperial database had never failed to identify a ship. Every species, every faction, every civilization left its mark on its technology. Designs could be copied, modified, hidden, but some trace always remained. This ship had no trace. This ship belonged to no one. "Scan the hull material," Varos said quietly. "Scanning now." Mira worked her console. "Results are contradictory, sir. The material appears to be metallic, but it is not matching any known alloy. Density readings are inconsistent. Temperature readings are impossible. The hull appears to be both extremely cold and extremely hot at the same time." "That makes no sense." "I know, sir, but these are the readings." Varos turned to his communication officer, a nervous young man named Ensign Pell. "Open a channel. Standard Imperial greeting. Demand identification." Pell nodded and transmitted the message. The bridge waited. Seconds passed, then minutes. No response came. "Transmit again," Varos ordered. "All frequencies." Pell did as commanded. Still nothing. The unknown ship hung in space like a dark ghost, silent and still. Then the tactical officer, Commander Drex, spoke in a voice tight with fear. "Captain, the unknown vessel has activated targeting systems. It has locked weapons on us." The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. Varos felt his heart beating faster than it had in years. He had faced enemies before. He had fought in battles where death was certain, but he had always known who he was fighting. He had always understood the enemy. He did not understand this. "Raise shields," he commanded. "Arm weapons. But do not fire. No one fires without my direct order." The vigilance hummed as defensive systems activated. Varos knew his ship was powerful. It carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. But as he stared at the dark shape on his view screen, he felt something he had not felt in decades. He felt afraid. "Sir," Mira said slowly, "I am running a deep archival search, going back through pre-imperial records." "Pre-imperial? Those records are thousands of years old." "I know, sir. But standard databases have failed. I am looking for any match, no matter how old or partial." Veros nodded. It was a good idea. The Empire had conquered or absorbed hundreds of species over its long history. Perhaps this ship belonged to some forgotten civilization, some remnant that had hidden in the darkness of space. The search took several minutes. During that time, no one spoke. The unknown ship remained motionless, its weapons still locked on the vigilance. Varos noticed that his hands were gripping the arms of his command chair so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Finally, Mira looked up. Her face had gone from pale to ashen gray. "Captain, I found something. A partial match only. The confidence level is very low." "Tell me." "The drive signature of the unknown vessel carries traces that resemble something from our oldest archives. Records from before the Empire existed. Records from a species that was declared extinct 300 years ago." Varos felt the cold sensation in his stomach spread through his entire body. "Which species?" Mira swallowed hard. "Humans, sir. The ship appears to be of human origin." The bridge erupted in murmurs. Varos raised his hand for silence, but his mind was racing. Humans. Earth. He knew the history. Every Imperial officer knew the history, though it was rarely discussed openly. 3 centuries ago, humanity had been a young species, newly arrived in the galactic community. They were primitive by Imperial standards, but they were clever and determined. The Empire had offered them membership, a place in the great civilization that spanned the galaxy. The humans had refused. They had wanted to develop on their own terms, to keep their independence, to remain free. The Empire did not tolerate refusal. What followed was never called a war. Wars were documented, debated, remembered. What happened to Earth was quieter, a plague that spread through human colonies, economic manipulation that collapsed their fragile governments, resource shortages that turned allies into enemies, civil wars that burned their cities. The Empire watched from a distance, offering sympathy and aid that somehow never arrived. Within 2 decades, Earth was silent. Imperial scouts sent to observe found ruins, empty cities, abandoned space stations. Billions of humans had lived on Earth and its colonies. None remained. The Empire declared humanity extinct, a tragic lesson in the cost of rejecting civilization. The Sol system was quarantined, marked as a graveyard, and forgotten. But here now in the darkness of the outer veil, a ship that should not exist waited with weapons locked. "That is impossible," Commander Drek said. "Humans are dead. Everyone knows this." "Everyone knows what the Empire told them," Varos replied quietly. He did not know why he said it. The words simply came out. "Sir, what do we do?" Varos stared at the unknown ship. He thought about the humans who had died 300 years ago. He thought about the quiet genocide that his empire had committed and then erased from memory. He thought about what he would feel if his people had been destroyed, and if he had somehow survived, and if he had spent 3 centuries in darkness preparing for this moment. He would want revenge. Anyone would want revenge. "Maintain position," he said slowly. "Keep weapons armed, but do not target them. We will wait. We will see what they want." "And if they fire?" Varys did not answer. He was not sure there would be time to answer if the humans decided to fire. The bridge fell silent again. Minutes passed like hours. The unknown ship remained still, a dark shape against the stars, patient as death itself. Then Ensign Pell gasped. "Captain, something is happening. Text is appearing on our view screen. But I did not receive any transmission. They are somehow projecting directly onto our displays, bypassing all security protocols." Varys looked at the main screen. Words had appeared there, white letters against the black of space. Simple words, clear words, words that made his blood run cold. "We remember what you did. We have been watching. We need to talk." Before Varys could respond, before he could even begin to process what he was seeing, His communication officer spoke again. Sir, I am receiving reports from Imperial Command. Emergency channels. Priority 1. What reports? Pell looked up with terror in his eyes. Identical messages are appearing on Imperial ships across the galaxy. Not dozens, sir. Not hundreds. Thousands. Unknown vessels are appearing everywhere, and they all carry the same message. Varos sat back in his chair and felt the weight of history pressing down upon him. For 300 years, the Empire had believed humanity was dead. For 300 years, they had continued their conquests, their manipulations, their quiet cruelties, confident that no one would hold them accountable. They had been wrong. The humans had survived. The humans had watched. The humans had waited. And now at last, the humans had returned. Varos looked at the dark ship on his view screen and wondered what came next. He wondered if the Empire would survive what was coming. He wondered if any of them would survive. But most of all, he wondered what humanity had become in those 300 years of darkness. He suspected he was about to find out. The message burned in Captain Varos Kell's mind as he stood on the bridge of the Vigilance. We remember what you did. We have been watching. We need to talk. Those words had appeared on thousands of Imperial ships across the galaxy. Those words had shattered 3 centuries of comfortable lies. Varos walked slowly to the viewport and stared at the unknown vessel that hung in space before him. The ship had not moved. Its weapons remained locked on the Vigilance. It simply waited, patient and silent, like a predator that knew its prey could not escape. Captain, Lieutenant Miratash said quietly, what are your orders? Varos did not answer immediately. He was thinking about history. He was thinking about what the Empire had done to humanity and what humanity might now do to the Empire. He remembered learning about Earth as a young cadet in the academy. The instructors had spoken of humans as a cautionary tale. Here was a species that had reached for the stars, that had shown promise and potential, but that had ultimately destroyed itself through pride and foolishness. They had rejected the Empire's generous offer of membership. They had insisted on isolation and independence, and in the end, their civilization had collapsed under the weight of its own failures. That was the official story. That was what every Imperial citizen learned in school, but Varys had lived long enough to know that official stories often hid darker truths. Mira, he said slowly, pull up the classified historical archives. Authorization code Varos 77 Delta. The young lieutenant hesitated. Sir, those archives are restricted to senior commanders only. I am a senior commander. Do it. Mira entered the authorization code. New files appeared on her screen, files that carried warning symbols and security classifications. Varos walked to her station and began to read. The true history of humanity's fall was uglier than the official version. The Empire had not simply watched as Earth collapsed. The Empire had engineered that collapse with careful precision. First came the plague. Imperial scientists had developed a virus specifically designed to attack human biology. It was released quietly through trade ships and diplomatic vessels. Within a year, millions of humans were dead, and the survivors were too busy fighting the disease to notice the other attacks that were coming. Next came the economic manipulation. The Empire controlled galactic trade. They began quietly restricting access to resources that humanity needed. Food shipments were delayed. Medical supplies were rerouted. Energy contracts were canceled. Human colonies that had been thriving suddenly found themselves starving. Then came the political manipulation. Imperial agents infiltrated human governments and encouraged division. They funded extremist groups on both sides of every issue. They spread lies and propaganda designed to turn humans against each other. Civil wars erupted across Earth and its colonies, wars that killed billions more. Throughout this process, the Empire maintained its public face of sympathy and concern. They offered humanitarian aid that never arrived. They proposed peace negotiations that led nowhere. They expressed sorrow at the tragic self-destruction of such a promising species. Within 2 decades, humanity was silent. The Sol system became a graveyard of ruined cities and empty stations. Imperial scouts confirmed that no organized human civilization remained. The Empire declared humanity extinct, closed the records, and moved on to new conquests. Varos read these files and felt sick to his stomach. He had served the Empire his entire life. He had believed in its mission, its purpose, its right to rule. But this was not rule. This was murder. This was genocide hidden behind bureaucratic language in classified archives. Captain, Mira said softly, I did not know. None of us knew. Most Imperial citizens do not know, Varos replied. The Empire is very good at keeping secrets. But why? Why would they do this? Varos thought about that question. He thought about all the species the Empire had conquered over the millennia. Most had submitted willingly, accepting Imperial rule in exchange for technology and trade and protection. A few had resisted and been crushed through open warfare, but none had simply refused and asked to be left alone. Humanity rejected the Empire, he said finally. Not with weapons, not with threats. They simply said no. They wanted to find their own path, make their own choices, build their own future, and the Empire could not allow that. Why not? Because if one species could say no and succeed, others might try the same. The Empire does not rule through pure force. It rules through the belief that there is no alternative. Humanity threatened that belief simply by existing outside Imperial control. Mira was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at the dark ship on the view screen. If the humans survived, if they have been watching for 300 years, they must hate us. They must want revenge. Yes, Varos said. They must. The bridge remained tense as hours passed. The unknown ship did not move. No further messages appeared, but reports continued to pour in from across the Empire. Thousands of human vessels had appeared in every sector of Imperial space. They had locked weapons on military installations, on government buildings, on the personal ships of high-ranking officials. They had not fired. They had not made demands. They simply waited. The Imperial Senate was in chaos. Emergency sessions had been called. Admirals screamed for preemptive strikes against the human vessels. Intelligence directors admitted they had no information about human capabilities or intentions. The Emperor himself, old and increasingly frail, had demanded answers that no one could provide. Varos understood the panic. For 3 centuries, the Empire had believed it was the supreme power in the galaxy. Now suddenly, that belief was crumbling. An enemy had appeared from nowhere, an enemy that should not exist, an enemy whose technology apparently surpassed anything the Empire had ever seen. How had they survived? Where had they been hiding? What had they been doing for 300 years? Commander Drex approached Varos with a data tablet. Captain, I have analyzed the sensor readings from the unknown vessel. I do not understand what I am seeing. Explain. The ship's power signature is unlike anything in our records. It appears to generate energy through a method we cannot identify. The hull material absorbs our scanning beams in ways that should be physically impossible. And the weapon systems, Drex shook his head. I cannot determine their yield or type, but based on the energy readings, I believe a single shot from that ship could destroy the Vigilance completely. Could we damage it if we fired first? I do not know, sir. Our weapons might have no effect at all, or they might trigger a response that annihilates us instantly. I recommend we do not test either possibility. Varos nodded slowly. He had no intention of firing first. He was an old man who had seen too much death. He wanted no more blood on his hands, especially blood that might be justified in seeking vengeance. He made a decision. It went against every protocol he had ever learned. It would probably end his career if he survived the day, but he did it anyway. Ensign Pell, he said, open a direct channel to the unknown vessel. I want to speak with them personally. Pell stared at him. Sir, Imperial regulations require us to wait for instructions from High Command before initiating contact with unknown entities. I am aware of the regulations. Open the channel. Pell swallowed hard and obeyed. Static filled the bridge speakers for a moment. Then there was silence. Varos spoke clearly and slowly. This is Captain Varos Kell of the Imperial Cruiser Vigilance. I have read the classified files about what the Empire did to your people. I cannot change the past. I cannot bring back the dead. But I am willing to listen. I am willing to talk. If you have something to say, I will hear it. Silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then the main view screen flickered and a face appeared. She was human, middle-aged with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of years of hard decisions. She wore no uniform that Varos recognized. Her expression was calm, controlled, revealing nothing. "I am called Speaker," she said. Her voice was quiet but carried clearly through the bridge. "I speak for those who survived. I speak for those who remember." "I am listening," Varos said. 300 years ago, your empire tried to destroy us. You failed. We retreated into the darkness. We went underground, into bunkers and caves and hollowed asteroids. We buried our dead. We mourned our lost worlds. And then we rebuilt. How did you survive? Our scouts found no trace of human civilization. Speaker smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. Your scouts found what we wanted them to find. Empty cities, abandoned stations, the appearance of extinction. We made ourselves invisible. We learned to hide in the spaces your empire never thought to look. And in 300 years, what have you been doing? Watching, learning, growing? Speaker's eyes seemed to bore into Varos through the screen. We are everywhere now, Captain. We have been everywhere for over a century. We have walked on your worlds, worked in your stations, studied your technology. You never noticed us because you believed we were dead. The dead do not need watching. Varos felt a chill run through him. If you have been among us all this time, why reveal yourselves now? Because your empire is dying. The rebellions, the resource shortages, the succession crises. Within a century, perhaps less, your civilization will collapse. When it does, billions of innocent beings will die in the chaos. And you care about those beings? After what the Empire did to you? Speaker was quiet for a moment. That is the question, Captain. That is the question we have spent 300 years asking ourselves. We have the power to accelerate your empire's fall. We have the power to take revenge for every human who died because of your arrogance. We have the power to become the new masters of this galaxy. She leaned closer to the screen. The question is whether we should. Varos stared at her. He saw the weight of history in her eyes. He saw the ghosts of billions of dead humans standing behind her. He saw a species that had every right to hate, every right to destroy, every right to make the Empire pay for its crimes. And he saw something else. He saw doubt. He saw a civilization wrestling with a choice that would define its future. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. Speaker did not answer immediately. She studied him for a long moment, as if measuring his worth. "We need to talk," she said finally. "Not just you and me, all of us, your empire and our survivors. We need to decide together what comes next." The view screen went dark. The unknown ship remained motionless in space, its weapons still locked, its intentions still unclear. Varos sat down heavily in his command chair. His officers looked at him with fear and confusion in their eyes. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know if the Empire would survive, or if humanity would choose vengeance, or if the galaxy would burn in a war that had been 3 centuries in the making. But he knew one thing with certainty. Everything was about to change. Across the Galactic Empire, chaos spread like fire through dry grass. Unknown ships had appeared in every sector, every system, every corner of Imperial space. They did not attack. They did not make demands. They simply arrived, locked weapons on nearby vessels and installations, and waited. On the capital world of Throne Prime, the Imperial Senate had descended into madness. Senators screamed at each other across the Great Chamber. Some demanded immediate military action against the human vessels. Others called for negotiation and diplomacy. A few suggested surrender, though they were quickly shouted down by their colleagues. Grand Admiral Torax Ven stood before the Emperor's throne and delivered his report in a voice that trembled despite his efforts to control it. "Your Majesty, we have confirmed over 4,000 human vessels across Imperial space. Our analysis suggests they possess technology significantly more advanced than our own. Their ships can appear and disappear without detectable FTL signatures. Their weapon systems operate on principles we do not understand, and our intelligence networks have no information about their capabilities, their numbers, or their intentions." The Emperor was ancient, his gray skin hanging loose on his bones, his eyes clouded with age. He had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries. He had overseen the destruction of humanity as a young man. Now, at the end of his long life, he watched his life's work crumbling around him. "What do they want?" the Emperor asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We do not know, Your Majesty. They have made no demands. They have only said that they remember what we did and that they want to talk. Talk? Senator Crix, a bloated creature from one of the core worlds, pushed forward through the crowd. They have surrounded us with warships, and you speak of talking? We should destroy them now before they destroy us. Admiral Venn shook his head. Senator, I do not believe we can destroy them. Our preliminary analysis suggests that a single human vessel possesses firepower equal to an entire Imperial battle fleet. If we attack first, we will lose. The chamber exploded in shouting. Some called the Admiral a coward. Others demanded proof of his claims. A few fainted from the stress. Through it all, the Emperor sat silent on his throne, staring at nothing, perhaps remembering a young species that had said no to the Empire and paid the ultimate price, or so everyone had believed. Far from the capital, on the bridge of the Vigilance, Captain Varos Kell received a message from Speaker. She wanted to meet in person. She wanted to explain what humanity had become and what they intended to do. Varos agreed without hesitation. His crew thought he was mad. Commander Drex warned him that it was almost certainly a trap. Lieutenant Mira begged him to wait for instructions from High Command. High Command is too busy panicking to give instructions, Varos replied, and I am too old to spend my last years waiting for bureaucrats to make decisions. Prepare my shuttle. The shuttle crossed the space between the Vigilance and the unknown human vessel. As Varos approached, he got his first close look at the ship that had appeared from nowhere. Its hull seemed to shift and change as he watched, as if the material itself was alive. No running lights marked its outline. No identification symbols decorated its surface. It was a shadow made solid, a ghost given form. A docking bay opened without warning, revealing soft light within. Varos guided his shuttle inside and landed on a deck that looked nothing like any spacecraft interior he had ever seen. The walls curved like the inside of a seashell. The lighting came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The air smelled clean and fresh, like a garden after rain. Speaker was waiting for him. She stood alone, unarmed, dressed in simple gray clothing. Up close, Varos could see that she was younger than he had thought, perhaps 40 years old by human standards. But her eyes were ancient. Her eyes had seen things no one should have to see. Thank you for coming, she said. I know it took courage. I have seen enough death in my life, Varos replied. I have no desire to see more. If talking can prevent war, I will talk. Speaker nodded and gestured for him to follow. They walked through corridors that seemed to grow and shift around them, until they reached a room with wide windows that looked out at the stars. You want to know what happened to us, the Speaker said. You want to understand how we survived and what we have become. Yes. Then I will tell you. She turned to face the viewport, her reflection ghost-like against the darkness of space. When your empire began its attack on Earth, we did not understand what was happening at first. The plague seemed like a natural disaster. The economic problems seemed like bad luck. The political divisions seemed like our own fault. We blamed ourselves for years before we realized the truth. How did you learn? We captured Imperial agents. We interrogated them. We found their communications, their orders, their plans. By then, billions of us were already dead. Earth was burning. Our colonies were dying. But we finally knew who was responsible. Varos felt shame burning in his chest. He had not personally participated in humanity's destruction. He had been born long after it ended, but he wore the uniform of the empire that had done these things. He carried that guilt whether he wanted to or not. Some of us wanted to fight, Speaker continued, to strike back with everything we had. But we were too weak. Your empire would have crushed us completely if we had tried. So we chose a different path. We chose to disappear. How? We abandoned our cities. We left our worlds. We retreated into the hidden places, the deep bunkers, the hollowed asteroids, the dark stations between stars. We let your scouts find ruins and corpses. We made ourselves look extinct. And then, in the darkness, we began to rebuild. She turned to face him, and Varos saw pride in her eyes alongside the old pain. 300 years, Captain. For 300 years, we worked in secret. We developed new technologies, new methods of travel, new ways of hiding. We spread through the galaxy like ghosts, walking among your people, learning your secrets. watching your empire rot from within. You said you have been among us for over a century. Yes, your empire is so large, so confident, so certain of its own superiority. You never thought to look for us. You never considered that the species you murdered might still be out there, watching and waiting. Speaker smiled grimly. We have served in your fleets. We have worked in your factories. We have attended your schools and your ceremonies. Some of us have even married into your noble families. And you never knew. Varus thought about the implications of what she was saying. Human agents scattered throughout the empire. Access to secrets, to military codes, to political machinations. Humanity had not just survived. Humanity had infiltrated. Why reveal yourselves now? He asked. Because the time has come for a choice. Speaker walked to a console and activated a holographic display. The galaxy appeared before them. Imperial territory marked in red, rebellion zones in yellow, contested areas in orange. Your empire is dying, Captain. You have fought rebellion after rebellion for the past century. Your resources are depleted. Your military is stretched thin. Your subject species are beginning to realize that imperial rule is not inevitable. I am aware of the empire's problems. Within 60 years, perhaps less, your civilization will collapse. The rebellions will spread. The supply chains will break. Wars will erupt across 1,000 worlds. Billions of beings will die in the chaos, most of them innocent people who had nothing to do with what the Empire did to us. Speaker turned off the display. We have the power to accelerate that collapse. We have weapons that could crack your core worlds. We have agents who could assassinate your leaders. We have technology that could cripple your fleets overnight. We could end the Empire in a decade if we chose. And take revenge for Earth. Yes, Speaker's voice was quiet. We could take revenge. We could make your people suffer as our people suffered. We could burn your cities and poison your worlds and watch your civilization die screaming, just as ours did. Varos met her eyes. But you have not done this. No, we have not. Speaker was silent for a long moment. For 300 years, we have debated this question. What should we do with our power? What should we become? Some of us want vengeance. They want blood and fire and justice for the dead. They have designed weapons capable of destroying everything the Empire has built. And the others? The others believe that becoming destroyers would make us no different from you. They believe that the greatest victory is not revenge, but transcendence. Building something better instead of tearing down what exists. Speaker walked closer to Varos. That is why I am here, Captain. That is why we revealed ourselves. Humanity must choose what it will become. And we have decided to make that choice openly, honestly, with full knowledge of what we are doing. What have you chosen? Speaker did not answer immediately. She looked out at the stars, at the vast darkness that held secrets 3 centuries old. We have chosen to offer the galaxy something it has never had before, she said finally. A hand extended without expectation of submission. Help without conquest. Alliance without empire. We will offer our technology to those who want it. We will aid the rebellions that seek freedom. We will help build a new galactic order based on cooperation instead of domination. Varos felt something shift in his chest. It might have been hope. And the Empire? The Empire will fall regardless of what we do. We could accelerate its destruction, but we have chosen not to. We will watch. We will wait. We will offer mercy to those who seek it, even those who serve the system that tried to destroy us. She met his eyes. But we will not forget, Captain. We will never forget what was done to us. And if anyone attempts to harm us again, if anyone tries to finish what the Empire started, we will defend ourselves without hesitation or restraint. Mercy is offered. It is not guaranteed. Varos understood. He understood that humanity had made the hardest choice a wounded species could make. They had chosen to be better than their enemies. They had chosen hope over hatred, building over burning, the future over the past. But they had also made clear that this choice could be changed. The weapons were still ready. The plans were still in place. If the galaxy responded to humanity's mercy with violence, humanity would respond with devastating force. It was, Varos thought, exactly what he would have done in their position. What happens now, he asked. Now we tell the galaxy the truth about what the Empire did to us, about what we could do to the Empire, about what we have chosen instead. Speaker extended her hand toward him. And we hope that enough people will listen. Varos looked at her hand. It was the hand of an enemy, the hand of a species his empire had tried to murder. But it was also the hand of hope, the hand of possibility, the hand of a future that did not have to be written in blood. He took it. I will listen, he said, and I will tell others what I have learned here. Speaker smiled. It was the first genuine smile he had seen from her, and it transformed her face, making her look younger, softer, almost innocent. Thank you, Captain. That is all we can ask. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the fates of empires and species. But somewhere in that vast darkness, the future was being written, and for the first time in 300 years, humanity would help write it. In the darkness between stars where no imperial sensor could reach, a city floated. It had no name that outsiders would recognize. Its inhabitants simply called it Haven. 2 million humans lived there, in a station carved from the heart of a dead comet, hidden by technology that bent light and swallowed energy signatures. For 300 years, Haven had been the secret capital of humanity's survival. Elder Maya Chen stood before the Council of Voices, the governing body that had guided humanity through its long exile. The chamber was simple, its walls bare stone lit by soft artificial light. No thrones, no elaborate decorations. Humanity had learned to value function over ceremony during its years in hiding. The time has come, Elder Chen said. We have revealed ourselves to the Empire. Our ships have appeared across their territory. They know we survived. They know we are watching. Now we must decide what happens next. The council consisted of 12 representatives from the major human communities scattered across the galaxy. Some attended in person, others appeared as holographic projections, their images transmitted through communication networks the Empire had never detected. Together, they represented the voices of 30 million surviving humans. Representative Kira Voss spoke first. She was young, barely 40, but her family had led the Reclaimer faction for 3 generations. The decision has already been made, she said. Our ancestors did not survive genocide just so we could offer mercy to our murderers. We have the power to destroy the Empire. We should use it. Murmurs of agreement came from several council members. The Reclaimers had always been popular among those who remembered Earth most bitterly. They had spent centuries designing weapons capable of cracking planets, viruses that could target specific species, economic attacks that could collapse imperial trade networks overnight. Their plans were detailed, thorough, and devastating. We could end them within a decade, Kira continued. Targeted strikes against their leadership, sabotage of their military infrastructure, support for every rebellion in their territory. By the time we finished, the Empire would be nothing but ashes and memory. And then what? Representative Thomas Okafor stood slowly. He was old, one of the few council members who had been born on Earth itself, carried in his mother's womb as she fled the burning cities. We destroy the Empire. We kill billions of beings, most of whom had nothing to do with what happened to us. We become exactly what they were. And then what? Then we are safe, Kira replied. Then we never have to fear them again. Are we so sure? Thomas walked to the center of the chamber. The Empire has conquered 1,000 species over its history. It has crushed 100 rebellions. It has survived challenges that would have destroyed lesser civilizations. And yet here we are, discussing its destruction. Do you know why the Empire is dying? No one answered. The Empire is dying because it built its power on domination, on fear, on the belief that strength comes from crushing those who resist, and eventually, inevitably, it created more enemies than it could control. Every conquered species remembers what was taken from them. Every suppressed rebellion leaves seeds of future resistance. The Empire is drowning in the hatred it has cultivated for millennia. Thomas turned to face Kira directly. If we destroy the Empire through hatred and violence, we plant the same seeds. We become the new tyrants. We create new victims who will remember what we did to them. In 1,000 years, perhaps less, our descendants will face the same crisis we face today. They will inherit an empire built on blood, and they will watch it crumble just as this one is crumbling. So what do you propose, Kira demanded? That we forgive them? That we pretend they did not murder billions of our people? No. I propose that we remember what they did and choose to be different. Thomas's voice was quiet but firm. I propose that we prove our ancestors did not die in vain by building something better than what destroyed them. The debate continued for hours. Representatives spoke passionately on both sides. Some quoted the names of dead relatives, lost colonies, burned cities. Others spoke of children born in the hidden stations, children who had never known Earth but who deserved a future not defined by ancient hatreds. Elder Chen listened to every argument. She had been born in Haven, had spent her entire life among the survivors, had trained with the warriors who could destroy empires and studied with the scientists who could heal worlds. She understood both sides of this debate because she carried both sides within herself. When the arguments finally faded, she raised her hand for silence. I have heard your voices, she said. Now let me tell you what I see. I see a species that was nearly destroyed by hatred. Not just the Empire's hatred of us, but our own divisions, our own conflicts, our own inability to trust each other. The Empire exploited our weaknesses because those weaknesses were real. We made ourselves vulnerable through our own failures. She paused, gathering her thoughts. For 300 years, we have had one goal: survival. Everything we have done, every sacrifice we have made, every child we have raised in darkness has been in service of that goal. And we have succeeded. We survived. We grew strong. We developed technology that surpasses our enemies. We have won the war for survival. Then let us win the war for revenge, Kira said. That is not victory, Elder Chen replied. That is merely continuing the cycle that nearly destroyed us. True victory is breaking that cycle. True victory is proving that a species can endure genocide and still choose mercy. That we can have the power to destroy and choose to build instead. She looked around the chamber, meeting every eye. I propose that we offer the galaxy what the Empire never did: partnership without submission, aid without conditions, technology shared freely with those who need it. We will help the rebellions, not because we want to destroy the Empire, but because every species deserves the freedom we fought so hard to preserve. And if the Empire attacks us, Representative Yuki Tanaka asked, if they try to finish what they started, then we defend ourselves. Our weapons remain ready. Our plans remain in place. We are offering mercy, not weakness. Anyone who mistakes one for the other will learn the difference quickly. Elder Chen took a deep breath. This is not the easy choice. Revenge would be simpler. Hatred would be more satisfying. But we have spent 300 years proving that we are better than easy or satisfying. We are the species that refuse to die. Now we must become the species that refuse to become monsters. The vote was held in silence. Each representative touched their console, entering their choice. The results appeared on the central display. 7 in favor of the builder's path. 5 in favor of the reclaimer's path. Humanity had chosen mercy. Kira Voss stared at the results with fury in her eyes. This is not over, she said. When the Empire betrays your trust, when they attack us again, you will wish you had listened to me. Perhaps, Elder Chen acknowledged, but if that day comes, we will still have the power to respond. For now, we choose hope. The council dispersed, its members returning to their hidden communities across the galaxy. The decision was made, but the work was just beginning. Messages needed to be sent, plans needed to be adjusted. A species that had hidden for 3 centuries needed to step into the light. Elder Chen remained in the chamber after everyone else had left. She stood before the display showing the vote results and thought about the weight of the decision they had made. 30 million humans would now follow a path that required them to be better than their enemies, to offer forgiveness to those who did not deserve it, to build bridges with species who had watched humanity burn and done nothing. It was, she thought, the most difficult thing humanity had ever attempted. Harder than surviving genocide, harder than hiding for 300 years, harder than developing technology that could destroy empires. Choosing mercy when you have the power to choose vengeance. That was the true test of civilization. She hoped they were ready for it. In the outer veil, Captain Veros Kell returned to the Vigilance with his mind full of everything he had learned. The unknown human ship remained in position, its weapons still locked, but somehow the threat felt different now. Less like a predator preparing to strike, more like a guardian watching over something precious. Veros gathered his senior officers and told them what Speaker had revealed. The truth about Earth's destruction, the truth about humanity's survival, the truth about the choice they had made. Some officers were skeptical, others were terrified. A few, like Lieutenant Mira, showed something that might have been hope. If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it already, Mira said. The fact that they are offering to talk means something. It means they are weak, Commander Drex argued. It means they do not have the strength to fight us directly. Does it? Veros shook his head. A species that can appear anywhere in Imperial space without warning, that can project messages through our security systems, that has apparently walked among us for a century without detection. Does that sound weak to you? Drex had no answer. Humanity has chosen to offer mercy, Veros said. That does not mean they are incapable of war. It means they have the wisdom to see that war would serve no one. They could destroy the Empire and spend the next 1,000 years fighting the chaos that followed. Or they could help build something better and spend those same centuries in peace and prosperity. He looked at each of his officers in turn. I have served the Empire my entire life. I have believed in its mission, but I have also seen its cruelty, its arrogance, its willingness to destroy anything that challenges its authority. If humanity is offering a different path, a better path, perhaps we should listen? The bridge was silent. Beyond the viewport, the human ship waited, patient as always. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the future trembled on the edge of a knife, waiting to see which way it would fall. The broadcast began at midnight, measured by the standard Imperial calendar. Across every inhabited world in the galaxy, screens flickered and changed. Entertainment programs paused. News feeds shifted. Emergency channels activated, and the same message appeared everywhere, transmitted through methods the Imperial censors could not block. A human woman appeared on billions of screens. She was middle-aged, with gray streaks in her dark hair and calm, steady eyes. Behind her stood others, men and women and children, the faces of a species the galaxy had believed extinct. My name is Speaker, she said. I speak for the humans who survived. I speak for the 30 million descendants of Earth, and I speak to tell you the truth. The broadcast lasted for 1 hour. Speaker told the history that the Empire had hidden, the engineered plague, the economic manipulation, the political sabotage, the quiet genocide that had killed billions while the galaxy looked away. She named the officials who had ordered these actions, many now dead, but some still holding power. She presented evidence, documents and recordings and testimony that could not be denied. Then she told the second part of the story, the survival, the 3 centuries of hiding, the technology developed in darkness, the infiltration of Imperial society, the 30 million humans who had rebuilt their civilization while the Empire believed they were extinct. Finally, she told the third part, the choice. We have the power to destroy the Empire, Speaker said simply. We have weapons that could crack your core worlds. We have agents in your governments and your militaries. We could end your civilization in a decade if we chose. We have spent 300 years preparing for this moment. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle across the galaxy. We have chosen not to use that power, not because we are weak, not because we have forgotten what you did to us. We will never forget. We have chosen mercy because we have learned that destruction only creates more destruction, that revenge only feeds more hatred, that the cycle of violence can only be broken by those who are strong enough to break it. Speaker looked directly at the screen, as if she could see every viewer in the galaxy. To the subject species of the Empire, we offer alliance. We will share our technology. We will support your independence. We will help you build a future free from domination. We ask nothing in return except that you remember what we chose when we could have chosen differently. To the Empire itself, we offer this warning. We do not seek your destruction, but we will defend ourselves and our allies without hesitation. If anyone attempts to harm us again, if anyone tries to finish what was started 300 years ago, They will discover that mercy has limits. This is the choice we have made. This is who we have chosen to be. The rest is up to you. The broadcast ended. The screens returned to normal. But nothing was normal anymore. Across the empire, rebellions that had been dying now ignited with new strength. Species that had submitted to imperial rule for centuries suddenly saw a different path. Human technology began appearing in rebel hands. Advanced weapons and medical supplies and communication devices that made coordination possible across light years of space. The imperial military tried to respond, but they were fighting shadows. Human ships appeared and disappeared without warning. Imperial supply lines were disrupted by sabotage. Governors and admirals who had been responsible for the worst imperial abuses began dying in mysterious accidents. Within a year, the empire had fragmented into dozens of successor states. Some tried to continue the old ways, enforcing their will through military force. They quickly discovered that human vessels would appear above their capitals, weapons locked, waiting. The message was always the same: freedom or fire. Most chose freedom. Other successor states attempted to build something new. They reached out to the humans, requesting aid and alliance. They were surprised to find that the offer was genuine. Human engineers helped construct sustainable power systems. Human doctors shared medical technology that could cure diseases the Empire had never bothered treating. Human teachers opened schools where any species could learn. Captain Varos Kell did not return to Imperial service after the broadcast. There was no Imperial service left to return to. Instead, he accepted an invitation from Speaker to help establish connections between the emerging successor states and the human communities. 1 year after the revelation, Varos stood on the observation deck of a space station that had not existed 12 months earlier. It orbited a world that had been under Imperial occupation for 6 centuries. Now it was free, its people working alongside human advisors to build something new. Speaker joined him at the viewport. They watched ships arriving and departing, vessels from a dozen different species engaged in the complex dance of trade and diplomacy. "When I first saw your ship in the outer veil," Varos said, "I thought I was going to die. I thought humanity had returned for revenge, and that nothing could stop you." "The thought occurred to us," Speaker admitted. "For a long time, it was the only thought many of us could hold." "What changed?" Speaker was quiet for a moment. "Children," she said finally. "Children changed everything." "I do not understand." For the first generation of survivors, revenge was all that mattered. They had watched their families die. They had fled burning cities. They had buried friends and lovers and children in the dark places where we hid. Hatred was what kept them alive. She turned to face him. But then they had children of their own. Children born in the hidden stations, who had never known Earth, who had never experienced the genocide directly. And those children grew up asking questions. What are we surviving for? What kind of civilization do we want to build? Is hatred really all we have to offer the universe? And they chose something different. Not all of them. The reclaimers are still there, still angry, still ready to fight. But enough chose differently. Enough decided that humanity's greatest victory would not be destroying our enemies, but becoming something our enemies could never be. Something better. Varos considered this. "You took a great risk. Trusting the galaxy not to attack you when you revealed yourselves." "Yes, and the risk is not over. There are still those who hate us, who fear us, who would destroy us if they could. The reclaimers remain ready to respond if that hatred ever becomes action." Speaker smiled slightly. "But we have found that most beings, when offered a genuine choice between cooperation and conflict, choose cooperation. The Empire never offered that choice. We do." Below them, on the station's main concourse, Varos could see beings from a dozen different species walking together. Some wore the uniforms of the old Imperial military, now repurposed for peacekeeping missions. Others wore the simple gray clothing that humans seemed to prefer. They talked and laughed and argued, doing the complicated work of building a new galactic order. "Do you think it will last?" Varos asked. "This peace you are trying to build?" "I do not know," Speaker admitted. "Peace is harder than war. It requires constant effort, constant compromise, constant forgiveness. War is simple. Peace is complicated. But you chose to try anyway. Yes, because the alternative was becoming what destroyed us. And if we had done that, then in a sense, the Empire would have won. They would have killed humanity's soul, even if our bodies survived. She placed her hand on the viewport, as if reaching toward the stars beyond. 300 years ago, we were dying. We had every reason to give up hope. Instead, we chose to survive. Then we had every reason to choose revenge. Instead, we chose mercy. These choices define us more than anything that was done to us. Varos thought about his own life, his decades of service to an empire that had committed genocide and called it progress. He thought about the choices he had made and the choices he had failed to make. He thought about the future that was being built around him, uncertain and fragile, but alive with possibility. I wish I had known, he said quietly. All those years, I wish I had known the truth about Earth. Would it have changed anything? I do not know. Perhaps not. Perhaps I would have been too afraid to act. But I would have known. And knowing matters. Speaker nodded. That is why we told the truth. Not for revenge, not for justice, for knowledge. The galaxy needed to know what was done in its name. Only then could it choose to be different. They stood together in silence, watching the ships come and go, watching beings from species that had been enemies learning to become partners. Somewhere on the station, a human child was playing with children from 3 other species. They were laughing at some game, their voices rising through the corridor. They knew nothing of genocide or exile or 3 centuries of darkness. They knew only that they were friends, that the galaxy was wide and full of wonders, that the future was theirs to build. This, Varos thought, was humanity's real victory. Not the weapons they could have used, not the revenge they could have taken, but these children playing together, proving that the cycle of hatred could be broken. He looked at Speaker and saw that she was watching the children too. There were tears in her eyes. My grandmother survived Earth, she said softly. She told me stories about the burning cities, the plague victims, the ships fleeing through clouds of ash. She made me promise never to forget. You kept that promise. Yes, I never forgot. Speaker wiped her eyes and smiled. But I also chose to remember something else. My grandmother told me that even in the worst moments, even when everything was dying, there were people who helped each other. Strangers who shared food, neighbors who carried the sick, soldiers who refused orders to shoot civilians. Even at the end, humanity was not only hatred and fear. There was kindness too. There was love. She turned to face him fully. That is what I chose to remember. That is what I chose to honor. Not the hatred of those who destroyed us, but the love of those who survived. That is who we are, Captain. That is who we have always been. Varos bowed his head. He had no words adequate to the moment. Outside the viewport, a human ship passed by. It was small, unarmed, carrying supplies to a planet that had requested aid. On its hull, painted in colors that the Empire had tried to erase from history, was a symbol, a blue circle on white representing Earth, a planet that had burned, a people who had survived, a choice that had changed the galaxy. The ship disappeared into the darkness, carrying hope toward the distant stars. And somewhere, in the hidden places where humanity had waited for 300 years, the ghosts of the dead looked upon what their descendants had built. They approved.